Here we go. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Corporation of Mississauga to the corporate planning meeting on Tuesday, July 12th. Councillor Pilon and Councillor Chason, with regrets, are not going to be here tonight. I'd like to start out with the land acknowledgement. We'll begin this meeting by acknowledging that we are gathered on the land that has been inhabited by Indigenous people since time immemorial. We would like to recognize that we are on the Robson Superior Treaty territory, and the land on which we are gathered today is a traditional territory that Anishinaabe. Specifically, we acknowledge the neighboring community of Mishkot First Nation, to whom we have great respect. We also recognize the contributions of Indigenous peoples, including the Métis, in shaping and strengthening the community of the province of Ontario. We'll move on to welcome staff as well. I've got to welcome you. And the media. We'll go to disclosure of community interest. Any? Seeing none, we'll move on to approval of the agenda. Can I get a mover? Councillor Cannon. There's no delegations or presentations. Adoption of minutes. Any mover for that? Can I get a mover? Councillor Hatfield. And it's not permitted. Okay, there's no vote to cap capacity. No. Thank you. Move on. There's no business right with the previous meeting. New business number 7. We'll start out with Alex, a report for months of May and June. You want to take over?
Okay. So a couple big things happened for us in May, mostly reopening everything. Reopening the TIC was probably the biggest thing for us. That was a lot of work from every member of the department to get it open for the May long weekend, but we're really happy with how it turned out. And it has been extremely busy. Not so much in May. The first couple of weeks were, steady, but then really closer to Canada Day, it's gotten really a lot busier, and now it's just crazy in there. So, which is really good. We're really happy to have it open. Have some challenges with it, especially related to the septic system, but for the most part, it's been an excellent start to the season. And now that we've got all our summer students, it's rolling along nicely. Other things, we're on schedule for our capital projects for the community center. Some of them have already been completed, such as the heaters. Others things have been ordered with a pretty good lead time, but we're essentially ready to have everything in place by September. So happy with that. Got the final word today, actually, on the last outstanding item scheduled, which was the curling glycol pump, and that's scheduled for the second week, third week of August. So everything's kind of lining up there for us right now. Of course, at the community center, the usage goes down in May and June. So you can see in May, we had 150 bookings, and that's just like the tail end of a lot of the recreation programming. In June, we have 44-hour bookings. So you can see there's a big difference between those two events, as basically just moves outside. Couple other things that are notable. We worked on the track for the first time in 2 years. And that was a tough one. There's like very little left, but we managed to recover it enough for 2 schools to have their track and field events. And I talked about that a little bit later on because that's going to be enough for the Trillium application that's due in August to get that track redone, because really working on the track this year, we tried some new techniques. We managed to get it serviceable, but there's really just nothing there. Other things going on, we hosted Participaction. We actually placed 6th in Ontario and 22nd in Canada, our community, which is really good. We're pretty happy with the turnout, and that's a great opportunity for us as the municipality to work with several other community organizations all together on the same project. So it's typically pretty fun for our staff. It also helps us promote things on social media. So you can see I've got some statistics on social media. We've got in June 18,000 views on just our Facebook page. So metrics like that really help us feel like we're moving ahead well. I think other things on the radar, the 2 big things for council to kind of understand and consider today are related to funding applications. So at the very end of the report, I talk about the community center funding application. So I've said it a couple times in monthly reports. We've been talking on and off with Bednor, trying to get stuff out of them. We're not really having any success with them. We've also gotten word back from Simcoe, who reviewed the sort of engineering proposal that they've gotten from Tella and put their pricing on it. And their pricing was significantly different than the Class D cost estimate. But they also came up with a couple of different options. So we basically narrowed down a more bare bones HVAC proposal to about $1 million, and then taken a little bit more from some of the other things that we need to do that have been talked about the last couple of years, i.e. the foray in the community center, making the lobby more conducive to tourist information. So we've come up with about a $1.3 million project, which is significantly reduced from the $3 million that we were originally forecasting for. You would call it the more Cadillac, I guess, a solution, but a solution that was specifically developed for an ICIP green grant where you had to hit some specific greenhouse gas targets. That was fairly expensive infrastructure wise for us to hit those efficiencies. So what we're recommending to council today is we take the NOHFC application that we've already drafted and modify it for a smaller budget and go after that funding. So I guess I want to stop there and see if there's any questions about that specifically before I move on to the Trillium grant.
Any questions, guys?
This is for the track.
So this NOHFC grant is specific for the community center, and it's HVAC mostly, but then other things that we need at the community center, specifically like the floors in the banquet hall and curling lounge, and then some things in the lobby to promote tourist information and like that.
Okay, go ahead.
Next one's the track. Okay, so moving on. So the next funding application that we intend to do is for the track. It's about $150,000, which is the maximum available for Trillium at this particular intake. We're going to focus on operating the track as essentially like an economic driver of our community for these regional events. So not this year, not during the pandemic, but before the pandemic, we had regional events where the boards would come and several of the schools from other communities would come and use the track. And we did a quick calculation on it. Those sorts of weekends, when it's like a 3-day event, like a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the TREAMS model for that type is between $25,000 and $50,000 of economic impact. So we're going to use some of those numbers as leverage to try and get Trillium to fund about $150,000 worth of work to the track. And that's essentially digging the track up, relaying the base, and then making the track basically made of a granular material. So it's not going to be like a big fancy rubberized track, which last quote I got was 1.4 million. It's just not something our community can afford. But it'll be something that we can actually work with and maintain the staff because we just need material there in a base.
This would be okay if we apply for the Summer Olympics.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not something that's really on the radar. I understand that Chapel has a rubberized track. Yeah, I think that's awesome. I've heard that it's cracking and the repairs to it be significant. It's just a piece of infrastructure that, when you spend 1.4 million on that, now you have to maintain that, and then you have to replace that eventually, and that's a much bigger job than putting some work.
Especially if you've got your organic material, your material in your field is clay, for instance. You use a track like that, you've done. If you got the granular, you just will let it down.
Yeah. And we can service that in-house, right? Like this year we used Packer, like a rolling compactor. We have things like rigs for our equipment, tillers for our equipment. So we managed to do it in like a couple of days with mostly our stuff or stuff we can find in our community, right? Doing paving, things like that, you're exponentially adding to the cost of it. That's all I got. Any questions?
Wishes. But you are, I want to comment, you are right about the tech. I drive by there fairly frequently, and I don't see less than 10 to 15 vehicles there at any time. And morning to night. So it is a busy place. And that just shows you that everybody's starting to get out there and move again. So that's a good sign too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, thanks very much. Okay, any questions? We'll move on to Dan, the report of the months of May and June.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So for our operations for the months of May and June, we finished up our street and sidewalk sweeping. We put the benches out and garbage cans and floor boxes on Broadway and Mission Road. We opened up the cemetery, got everything cleaned it up, got everything going for there. We did add gravel to all the roads in the Mission. Made everybody happy down there. There was no cost to the town. It was materials that we got from one of our other jobs from our school zone, from all the grinding they did there. For the water, we got some SCADA training done for the operators and our assistant director. Our DWQMS, we're coming up on our meeting. We had another our quarterly meeting was done, and we did our annual hydrant flushing. But so our capital projects, school zone project is slow to start because we have to wait till the school ends. We did get a start with the PXO lights, pedestrian crossing lights. With those lights, we upgraded them on the school zone to see about the ones on Mission Road. If they work good for the ones on the school zone, we're going to upgrade the Mission Road ones at cost. We're going to do that for us because they haven't worked since pretty much the time of putting in. The milling machine went around, we milled everything that had to be done. We had to do it early because it's time slot. The milling machine is going to in Ontario and they have to do it at a certain time. So we had to do it before the school zone or before the school is up. So it got done. I'm sorry people had to drag over everything that was ground, but it's fine, right? Yeah. Our cemetery expansion, we're working on that. We have a drawing to bring forth to council to have a view to see their comments on it. It's something we have to work at. We only have 75 plots left in our current woodland cemetery. So it's something we're going to have to keep working on. Our landfill expansion, we did put out an RFP request for tender in May. We got one back, which we're going to bring to council tonight. And the deadline for submission was in June, and we're looking for recommendations. Hydrant rehabilitation. So this is, we were trying to do 8 hydrants a year, rehab our hydrants. One piece, we're going to take them down, cut them in half. Company comes in, they rehab them, change all the guts, they make them breakaways. With the lack of materials and the time for us to get them, it was going to end up, they wouldn't be able to do it this year. But with the cost, we asked them if we can get materials for 2022 and 2023, pay for them this year, and then they'll do 60 of them next year with cost for this year. Our water and wastewater rate study initiated the project, and with Watson and municipal staff kicked off the meeting June 23rd. And our water and wastewater master plan was awarded to Espernet Associates. We're waiting to coordinate for a kickoff then. That's pretty much it. Any questions?
I appreciate the detail. When I read it, I understand more what you're doing around town. Because you know, as a counselor, people think that we have no business. So well, I don't really know. Should talk to Brad. Anyway, I do appreciate that. Thank you.
Go ahead.
In the contract with Provo, can I ask it now? Like,
It's going to be an item in the agenda if you'd like, but you can certainly ask a question now.
I just wanted to know, like, in their proposal, they had at first 1.517, but they changed it, but they scratched it out and they changed it to 1714. Like it's scratched out on there and there's a higher price.
Yes, I believe that price that was scratched out as well, that includes HST. So the original 1.5 is exclusive of HST, but on the contract with the funding should have been inclusive in that amount.
So that's why they put it, that's what the HST.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, wait.
Well, Brad is on. Dan, Is all your staff or kids with them?
Yes.
How many were you able to?
3 students for IS and Montpelier.
But what about you, Alex? How many did you have?
We have 4 for maintenance, like parks maintenance. I got 4 for the tourist information center, and we have 1 for recreation.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you, Dan. So do you want to talk to the Secretary's Commission? Or we already did that?
He's going to talk more detail.
Okay, I just, for some reason. Then we just go ahead. So here we go.
The drawing up here.
So our, as I said, in 2020, with our Tiffany, our HR person, we come to the agreement that there's only 75 plots left. So we started to work on it. We got the area surveyed. So we have a survey for it, and then Pollock Engineering went ahead and they did 2 designs for us. We brought it to our cemetery committee, and to municipal staff to look through. We picked one that we liked, we all agreed on. We sent them back with some of our what we like to see, our recommendations. And they come back with 1 more, and this is what we've come up with. We brought it to the cemetery committee just before, and we asked for more what they thought. So these are their recommendations to see, mostly is what they are, is they'd like to see, called variants. So the way people are going is, majority of people are getting cremated now. So columbariums was one thing that we wanted to see at this new cemetery expansion.
What is that?
Columbariums, they're for ashes. They're above ground.
Okay, yeah.
So this is the design that Pollock has currently come up with a path, a walkway around path, columbariums on the right-hand side, and then a new entrance and parking area.
How many graves are there?
So, proposed total grave plots is 1,296 additional.
That's on the other side of that empty place.
Yes.
And how many of those buried?
Columbariums.
Columbariums, that is not, we don't have that decided yet. There's different designs and different numbers for each unit, so that'll be, once we come up with a design, that'll be something that we'll have to look into what we want and what they're made out of.
That's
We're just looking for comment and what council's opinion is of this new one, so that we can bring it back to Pollock so we can finalize.
I can call it much needed, because more and more people are getting cremated.
Agreed.
And they happen in all the other ones. They're starting to grow.
We did ask that they take one part to the right out and make it an area that maybe we can use it for future columbariums. If this takes off, that is something that we can add more to later on. If it fills up really quick or something like that, then we have an area. More, like you said, more people are getting cremated. So if we take out 40 or 50 plots and save it, we could probably get 1,000 columbarium people in there.
Yeah.
The other comments?
No, I think it's what needed and again, it's our future and expansions to part of the master plan, basically. No,
I don't like going.
well
into
done.
graveyards.
So this,
Go ahead.
this is already Where was this?
It's a 5-year.
Bring me back to the finance part of it.
It's a 5-year project that we're looking into. It's last year was only $10,000. This year it's $50,000-$60,000. It's something that we want to work to. Moving on, just keep taking 5 years to go ahead and do it. But it's not a big cost all at once.
Okay, thanks. Any questions?
It sounds like your cemetery is really important.
No, they're trying.
They're very interesting.
Okay, thank you for that.
So Mayor, if I may, sorry, so does staff have permission to proceed with this design, or would council like more time for comment? We're looking for direction from council,
Is it coming up in the regular council meeting?
not by a motion or anything like this.
No, I think it's great. I think you should continue to do what you're doing. Personally,
Okay.
that's-
I agree. It's a 5-year plan.
Yes.
I think we should.
It's progress.
Okay, thank you.
Is that sufficient? Good. Okay, we'll move on to 7.4. I guess Dan, you're up again for the landfill expansion.
Rebecca's gonna.
Okay, sure.
Sure, yeah, so, we're working on expanding the landfill, the existing site that we have, is approaching capacity, so we have to start looking at ways of modernizing, how we accept our waste. So what you'll see here is that, this is kind of over top of the existing site. But what'll happen is this sort of dotted line here is sort of the boundary that we're working within in terms of sort of constructing and building. What'll happen is the gate is gonna move further up the road. The gatehouse will be further up the road instead of in its traditional location of somewhere in or around sort of this new, recycling facility here. So what'll happen is kind of like how Sault Ste. Marie is set up. I zoom in this way. What traffic will do is they'll come in along this, it'll be on their right side as they'll come in, and there will be drop off areas in bins below. This will help us, stop people from actually driving up into where the equipment runs and where we put our garbage. So this way in those bins, we have full control. We can remove those bins, take them to an area that's further back that we're going to clear and grub and cut out themselves for that. What will happen is people will come around to this edge here, where they can, there's different signs and bins or areas for your yard waste, concrete, metals, things that we already have in place, but just a little more organized along with the flow of traffic. And then this area, these stalls you see here are various locations for recycling different materials and tires, the electric stuff, recyclables like your plastics, things like that. We've never been in there as well. And again, sort of bollards and things to help direct traffic and signs. To help with the cost of a budget, we did initially have a shed. You can kind of see this large square on the left here. That was going to house our compactor and things like that, especially in the winter time. But due to the cost and budget constraints, we decided to remove that since it's not in a structure already. It really doesn't need to be in a structure. It just needs the ability to be plugged in to ensure we can boost it in the wintertime. It's really cold. And then this road here will be our staff only, where they'll be taking the waste from the bins that people just drop stuff off in to take it back to those cells that are further in the back there. So we're gonna cut out and start to fill those in and then start to cut over the top. Typical landfill fashion. Anything else to add to that, Dan?
So,
Yeah, you questions?
Vehicles are gonna drive in on the passenger side to back in or on the driver's side to back in?
On the driver's side, they'll come in on the driver's side, yeah. It looks sort of backwards.
Yeah,
It's the bird's eye view, but yeah, on the driver's
and it's
side.
just gonna incur more staff to monitor this.
No, so we'll be able to do it with the staff.
Yeah, like, I mean, the person gotta stay in check. Right?
Yeah, and they'll direct people to where they're supposed to.
Cause I know I can see the ones, I mean, the ones, be the one who wins it. And there's always a staff up to making sure that when somebody backs up to one bin, nobody's around, they're just gonna put it all in that bin.
Yeah, yeah.
from the shack where it's going to be moved, you will be able to see all the bins. Where it currently is now, you can't see anything on top of the hill. So people do that now. I think with the new one, you'll be able to see everything right away. And it'll be clearly marked too, and being side by side, they can just throw stuff from one to the other.
A little more streamlined that way.
No, it makes more sense. So are we gonna, the fee structure is on the issue? Because obviously we're not putting base scales in. You gotta change that anyway, like, if the guy has a half ton or has the same length as the trailer, I mean, is it the same weight? You give that any thought?
We're looking at changing them, but our fees honestly are pretty high right at the moment for what we offer. Right? We did consider a scale, but at the cost of $1 million, plus it has to be calibrated twice a year. It's not really worth it, right, for the revenue that we get out of it.
Yeah, I, your scales are, they're a winter nightmare.
Yep.
Any questions? Go ahead, Counselor.
So we might be able to have bins for recycling, like plastics and stuff like that, like.
That'd be the plan to move forward, to be able to allow people in town to recycle.
Where does it go?
That would be the next, we're sort of in the planning phase of that, like this, we've got the space to do it, it'll be coming up in the next, with our next contracts and stuff. You know, our refuse collection and that.
But it's a start.
It is a start, yeah.
Is everybody in town wants to recycle, everybody wants to be in. So, we'll be next. Call the
What actually goes in those bins? On the ones like, as you're driving in, you said there's, yeah, what
Just
actually,
your regular household.
just regular household?
like I'm really hoping that we're starting this with recycling in mind. I mean, we're so spoiled in this town. I have a huge son that puts plastics in one and wood in the other. I mean, paper, but it's pretty easy.
So just finalize Rebecca and Dan's presentation by highlighting for council that at tonight's regular portion of the council meeting, there is a resolution to approve that the bid from Provo Contracting be accepted for the work to expand the landfill. I wanted council to note that majority of the expansion costs were paid for by a government grant. We still have about 780,000 remaining of that grant. Unfortunately, due to everything that's happening related to material supplies, contractor availability, and skyrocketing costs, the contract went out and it was brought back at 1.5 million, not including HST. But Dan and Rebecca went over the contract very carefully and eliminated what they believed we could without, such as the new shelter, made whatever modifications they felt we could. So the budget was reduced to about 1.2 million. So we'll be recommending that contract to council, but the resolution will also read, because we only have $780,000 in the budget. When we include the cost for our portion of HST, engineering fees to come, and other costs that may carry over into next year outside of this contract, this doesn't end our expansion obligations. The recommendation also includes a request of council to consider the transfer of an additional up to $500,000 from our general capital reserve for the purpose of this project. And staff is making that recommendation because we believe there is no choice. Staff has cut costs as much possible. And in our general capital reserves after review, in fact, that we ended last year with a $2.1 million surplus, that we will put the majority of that surplus back into general capital reserves. So this $500,000 won't leave us short. Does that explanation suffice to explain the resolution on tonight's council?
Yeah, I was gonna get talk, I got the memo over here, I was waiting to, after that, to you. One thing I wanted to ask is, now it says landfill expansion. Now, is this the actual landfill expansion, or is this a modification to dump the garbage in the landfill expansion?
So I guess if I'm understanding your question correctly, that what you're seeing sort of here in this picture is part of the existing landfill. We're building on what we already have, and then we're also acquiring additional acreage to be able to dig new cells and build in sort of that back section to.
So this project has nothing to do with the actual landfill expansion. This is. It does.
It does.
It
Yeah.
does, but it organizes. a new part.
Yeah, it sort of creates some form of structure in terms of how people can dump their waste when they are on the landfill instead of driving up that giant hill and sort of dumping it willy-nilly. Now we have a little bit of control by separating this process from the acreage that we will be using to the actual cell where the waste will be disposed of.
So we've got like really a project A and B. Then.
Yeah, there's sort of two parts to it, but it's all under one umbrella.
Okay, so all the costs that we're talking about are for both
Yes.
A and B?
Yeah, it covers it.
Okay. And I knew we were trying to organize it and do it the right way and to build separated, but I just wanted to know in relationship to
The rest of it.
whatever. Go ahead.
Provo has been awarded the contract.
We are about asking council to, if they would consider that, yeah.
When do you plan on starting this?
As soon as we can.
Our grant does end December 31st this year. We've had extensions already, so the program funding must be spent the $708,000 this year.
And Provo is going to be able to fulfill both contracts? With school zone and this one?
Yes.
They said they would, but they. Okay, I'm just a little taken back because there is an awful lot of work to do, but I'm not talking.
The school zone project should take 1 month.
Oh, it's done in a month?
Yep.
Oh, the water damage that always happens at the corner of the school there, on the street, did they fix that?
The corner of Magpie and Arnott, she's talking about the work remaining to be done, the replacement of the water.
All the water in the sewer line, that's what they're working on now.
Okay, so, yeah, okay, I just realized that's a lot of work. Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Thank you for making that clear. That's another big project again and it's the future of the community, so it's moving down the roadmap, as I say. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on then. Number 8, there's no camera. 9, Business Horizon, there's none. Next meeting will be Tuesday, August 16th with corporate. And we'll close the meeting at 7:04. Can I get an Uber? Councillor Hatfield? With 2 minutes and move on to the. Yeah, it is. You good? Okay, welcome to the regular council meeting. As I said before, Councillor Phelan and Chason are with regrets tonight. All to order and all members present. 7:05, I guess. Disclosure of your interest, any? Oh, we have one. Counselor Cannon,
I, Counselor Kathy Cannon, declare potential direct pecuniary interest on agenda item 14.3, item titled Bucks Marine.
approval agenda,
Moved by Councillor Hatfield, seconded by Councillor Cannon. Resolved that the agenda for the regular meeting of council scheduled for Tuesday, July 12th, 2022 be approved as amended.
all in favor? Motion carried. No delegations or presentations tonight. Announcements, give you a notice. You'll see that there's a number of meetings that have taken place. All the minutes are available from the meeting. Any questions, get back to us. Adoption of minutes.
Moved by Councillor Cannon, seconded by Councillor Hatfield. Resolved that the following minutes of the meeting of council be adopted as presented. Minutes of the regular meeting held on Tuesday, June 28, 2022, as contained on pages 1 to 7. Please recommend.
All in favor? Motion carried. Number 7 is correspondence. Federation of Municipalities. I guess. Everyone,
We were advised that a recent funding application that we made to the Federation of the Canadian Municipalities of Ontario was approved for $50,000, and we will be using that money to update the data that we have in our asset management plan, and more specifically, to do some condition assessments of our fire hall and other municipal buildings. So it is just the notice shared addressed to the mayor that we've received the grant.
thank you.
Um,
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, the grant is just for updating.
Data contained within our asset management plan. So any of the data we have specifically around looking at the condition of our buildings and assessing how old is the furnace, when should we replace it? So it gets included in the asset management plan. So it's data around our building.
Just so we can replace it. Breaks down.
Well, I have, for a minute, I thought the engineering plans were involved in that.
And asset management will be a building block and continue to be those. It'll be a pretty heavy package at the end. Okay, consent agenda.
Moved by Councillor Cannon, second by Councillor Hatfield. Resolved that the items listed under consent agenda, items 8.2 to 8.4, be approved as recommended.
All in favor? Carried. Staff reports.
Moved by Councillor Hatfield, second by Councillor Cannon. Resolved that the Council Corporation Municipality of Lowell is hereby received the following staff reports, a copy of which are attached here to A, AP 2022-05, report for the months of May and June 2022. B, BD 2022-03, report for the months of May and June 2022.
All in favor? Motion carried. Supervisor Curtis, new business, accept staff recommendations, one contract for services to J. Gould Contracting for landfill waste receiving area resolution.
Moved by Councillor Hatfield, seconded by Councillor Cannon, whereas Crescent Engineering Corporation, municipalities engineering consultant, issued a tender for the landfill site expansion project, which includes a construction of a waste receiving ramp, recyclables, divertibles, drop-off areas, road access to future landfill cell, as well as new site signage. And whereas one tender was received and confirmed the bid documents and specifications outlined therein. And whereas the municipality of Wawa allocated $790,000 in its 2022 capital budget for this project, and additional funds would have to be withdrawn from the general capital reserve. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation Municipality of Wawa does hereby award the landfill site expansion project to J. Gould Contracting Limited for the construction of a waste receiving ramp, recyclables, divertibles, drop-off areas, road access for future landfill cell, as well as a new site signage for a tender price of $1,259,611, excluding HST, and be it further resolved that up to 500,000 be taken from the general capital reserve to fund this project. And further, that it is understood that the 2021 municipal surplus be transferred to the general capital reserve.
All in favor? Motion carried. What's a motion? There's none. 13 bylaws.
Moved by Councillor Hatfield, second by Councillor Cameron, resolved that the following bylaws be introduced and read a first, second, and third time, finally passed, and that the mayor clerk to sign and seal the same. Any rule of council to the contrary, notwithstanding, bylaw number 3520-22. Confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on the 12th day of July 2022. Bylaw number 3521-22 to enter into a contribution agreement with the Federal Economic Development Agency for Northern Ontario, FedNor, for the development of a 5-year tourism plan recovery strategy. Bylaw number 3522-22 to adopt municipality of Walla policy number PR001, promotional items and gooseprint. Bylaw number 3523-22 to adopt municipality of Walla policy number GG-003, proceedings of councils and committees. Bylaw number 3524-22 to enter an agreement with Bannock Travel and Tourism Limited for a 5-year tourism plan. Bylaw number 3525-22 to enter into a transfer payment agreement with the Federal Economic Development Agency for Northern Ontario for the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program Green Stream project for the rehabilitation of the raw water intake well for the municipality of Walla drinking water system. And bylaw number 3526-22 to enter an agreement with J. Pro Contracting Limited for the development of the Walla municipal waste receiving area.
All in favor? Motion carried. The 7:12, we'll move into the closed session.
Moved by Councillor Cannon, seconded by Councillor Hatfield. Resolved that this committee proceeding camera at 7:12 in order to address the following matters related to a legal issue. It's an application under section 357 of the Municipal Act, and it's related to personal matters of an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. And then 2, a legal issue, proximity of security of property of the municipality or local board.
All in favor?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Motion carried.
Thanks. Good. Thank you so much. Good report. Thank you.
Good. Number 15, business arising from closed session.
We have a motion moved by Councillor Cannon, seconded by Councillor Hatfield. Resolved that the Council of the Corporation Municipality of Walmart does hereby accept staff recommendation as contained in report ICHR 2022-01 and approve the application made for reduction, cancellation, or refund of taxes in accordance with Section 357 of the Municipal Act as amended, and a corresponding impact response for the property located at 1 Pinewood Drive, roll number 5776-000-019-00904-0000 for the period from May 2022 to December 31st, 2022, as per the application.
In favor? Motion carried. Next meeting. Tuesday, August 16th. That's the one we moved that to 16th.
That's correct.
Okay. Adjournment of meeting is 7:35.
Moved by Councillor Hatfield, seconded by Councillor Cannon. Resolved that the meeting closes at 7:35 p.m.
All in favor? Motion carried. Thank you very much.